Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this year's World Dairy Expo tour, both in person and online. My name is Richard Franta, and I'm a robotic specialist with Deal Val. Here at Deal Val, we are very excited to sponsor this virtual tour of Feltz Family Farm. Along with this tour, Deal Val has also sponsored a Knowledge Nook session tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., which is focusing on the decision process that people go between choosing robots and rotaries, and that'll be directly behind you tomorrow at 10:30. This will bring together two producers and the journeys that they went through as they brought automation to their herds. For today's tour, when I think of the Feltz family, a word that comes to mind is the word welcoming. They are welcoming to their community, connecting consumers directly to agriculture and teaching them where their food comes from. They're welcoming to their family, diversifying their business to create opportunities for their children to pursue their passions at home on the farm. They are welcoming of new technologies, incorporating them into their farming operation on many levels, which you'll hear a lot about today. And they create a welcoming environment for their cows, centering on what is best for their herd. The cows then in turn reward them with high production. On the day that these videos were shot that you'll see in a little bit, it was 93 degrees, everyone was sweating and tired, and the cows, being completely comfortable, were averaging 111 pounds. So what all these things come together to create an excellent environment for the family, the farm, and the herd. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to our virtual tour of Feltz's Family Farm and Dairy Store.
The thing is, what do you do with money? I mean, if you have a decent vehicle and a decent house, my goal is really for the next generation to continue the farm. I mean, the farm life is great to raise a family. It's a great business that we have here, and I mean, as long as I have enough money, I don't need $1 million in the bank. So that's really my goal.
This is Feltz Family Farms. We're in Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
The farm's been here well over 100 years. Approximately 1913, I believe it was. My husband's great-great-grandfather came from Poland and started the farm.
We're a sixth-generation dairy farm that milks right around 700 cows.
Started with 50 cows back in 1993 when Jackie and I, my wife, we purchased the farm from my parents. You know, we were doing 10 different things. We were, raising all of our calves, doing all the cash crops. We had upright silos. It was just a never-ending thing, and there was so many different things to do that I couldn't do any of them good. I did them all partial. So I just chose one thing, and I chose to hopefully do it the best that I could. Yeah, we do one thing, and we try to be the best at it that we can. That's really what drives us here, to be the best that we can at milking cows.
About 10 years ago, we were milking about 500 cows, 4X in our double 12 parlor. Parlor was maxed out. There was 2 hours a day for wash time. We knew that with me coming into the business, plus having other siblings that would likely enter, that we were gonna have to expand in some capacity. About 6 years ago, we purchased our first Deal Val Classic robots. Pretty quickly, we fell in love with not only the robot, but the environment that goes with the robot, the environment for the cows. So over the last 5 years, we've continued to retrofit barns and add Deal Val robots to where we sit today with 10 total robots, 4 Classics and 6 V300s. We built our first green site VMS barn in 2016, 2 robots, 120 cows. Really liked what it did for us. Still having the parlor plus the robots, it gave us a lot of flexibility with cows. And we knew that was going to be the future for us.
I think adding the VMS to the farm was huge moving forward. As with many businesses throughout the country right now, people are struggling to find good quality employees. Especially as you expand, it becomes difficult. Now, instead of spending that time managing people and working with people, the VMS are able to take care of the cows.
I hope that our kids continue to thrive here and that they're excited to go into the future with farming and expand it to where they want to and put their ideas into use and come up with something even bigger and better than what we've done.
Well, very good. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Jared Feltz, sixth generation dairy farmer from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Thank you, Richard and Dee LaValle. Thanks for the nice introduction. Richard approached us about 6 months ago and brought up the idea of doing this. I said, Richard, you know, that's not really my thing. I get nervous in front of people. And he said, how about a new milking robot for you guys? I said, Richard, let's do it. So thank you, Dee LaValle, for that. So I traveled here today with my father and grandfather. I'm glad that well, my dad's here, but especially Grandpa, for him to come. It's pretty neat to have him. He is our chief wisdom and cheer officer at the farm. So a little bit about our history and who we are. So our roots go back to about 1913, when our ancestors emigrated from Poland. They settled in Polonia, Wisconsin, which was about 10 miles away from where we ultimately are today. Today we are in our 5th generation under my mom and dad, Ken and Jackie. They purchased the farm from my grandpa in 1995. And also today as we sit, myself and 2 of my siblings are involved in the farm as the 6th generation. And God willing, we'll have a 7th generation. So just a broad overview of who we are today. We're milking about 700 cows on 700 acres. About half of that land is owned and half is leased. I said in the video, but we're in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, so right in the central sands, about an hour and a half straight north of here. It's great ground, it's fertile ground, and where we are in Portage County, it's primarily vegetable crops, so dairy is kind of an outlier where we are. But we're proud to be, in our local community and in our county, and we've established good relationships with our neighbor farmers. And you can kind of see in this picture here, so not only are farmers our neighbors, but we have the public very close to us as well. So about half a mile to the northwest of us, there's a Walmart, there's apartment complexes. So over the last 20 years, that city has really migrated towards us. Today we have 10 milking VMS. We're still operating our double 12 parallel parlor, which was installed in, I believe, 2004. We have, over the years, really decided to focus on cows and only cows and milking cows. And so we strive for high production and ultimately high total solids that we ship. And so I'll talk more on that, how we've come to where we are today. And in the last 5 years, we started pasturing about 70 beef steers on some low-lying ground that we have close to us. So we have some experience with rotational grazing, which has been kind of neat, taking that on as well. So just a little timeline that explains kind of how we got to where we are. So if you go back before 1995, which would have been my grandpa's time, he started in 1963. And I asked him in the truck this morning to describe kind of, who he was as a dairy farmer, his identity. And I think he was a dairy farmer in the purest sense, as he loved to till the ground, work with the crops, and work with the animals. probably had many different species of animals on the farm. So a very traditional Wisconsin dairy farm. My father purchased the farm from Grandpa in 1995, and I think generally speaking the statistics were about 50 cows, 50 pounds of milk, and I think about a 650,000 cell count. So, and at that time again it was a very traditional traditional Wisconsin dairy farm. The story I've heard is that my dad, at a kind of a critical point somewhere after he purchased the farm, had to make a decision of who he was going to be. And supposedly some advisors came in and said, I think your best bet is to sell your farm to the city and get a real job at the paper mill. And so fortunately he chose the route that he did. And I give him credit, you know, to go from that point to where we are as a family today. So, kind of as Dad grew, it was like 30 cows per year, just steady growth, until ultimately the step-up parlor kind of outgrew itself, and in '04, the freestall barn and parallel parlor were built. That was kind of a big stepping stone as outside employees were added to the business. And really the focus was on cows and only cows. In that time, most of the equipment was sold, young stock was sold, and the decision was made to purchase replacement cows, to not grow our own cows, and again, to emphasize only on one thing. So from '08 to '12, it was steady growth to about 500 cows. Kind of stayed at that for a while until the point when I was going to be coming back in to the farm. I graduated college in 2013, and so ultimately we knew that myself and potentially other siblings were going to be coming into the business, and that we needed to grow in some capacity. The parlor was absolutely maximized as far as time, and at the same time, you know, these milking robots were just kind of getting popular, at least in our area. So after touring a few barns and doing our research, we really felt that that was our path forward. And so in 2016, we built our first green site robot barn and attached our dairy store to the front of it, and added about 120 cows. From that point on, we really felt like it was going to be, you know, for us, for the long haul, the robotic milking, and so we decided to remove cows from our parlor and retrofit existing barns with V300s, so the new VMS model. So 19, we did just a double robot pen. We did that again in 2021 with 4 VMS and a three-stall barn. And then this last summer, we added 2 more classics to our original classic barn. So doubling up our 53 stall pens, having two older model robots in those pens to get us to a total of 10 boxes today.
So a number of years ago, I did have a vision that I would like to open a dairy store, and I thought it would be really cool. When they talked about getting the first robots here, I thought it would be very interesting if we could have viewing windows out into the robot barn, and people could come in and watch the cows get milked by the robots, and also purchase dairy products. So the majority of the products that we carry here in the store are all from Wisconsin. We decided early on we wanted to keep everything as local as possible and support other Wisconsin businesses.
Now we kind of have the whole cycle right on site. We go, you know, right across the road, we grow the feed for the cows. We've got the cows that people can see get milked. We take that hot milk and then we make cheese right on site. Something that we can say is ours from start to finish, which I think is really cool.
You know, we were always worried about farming so close to town, but with this dairy store, that's really opened a lot of new doors for us, and the public has really embraced this. Our store's been open for 6 years now, and it's doing good.
I think we felt kind of a responsibility that we wanted to educate people on dairy farming and where their food comes from. So that was really important to us.
When I was a kid, we were kind of way out in the country, and now we've got a whole shopping complex, you know, just across the field, a quarter-mile away. So it was kind of, we had two choices, either to try and block people off and, you know, try to hide and close the doors and shut off to the public, or else we could accept people on and be really open and honest with them. And I think that's the route we've decided to take.
We bring a lot of tours through our barns, and that's really the highlight is going down into the VMS room and watching them milk cows. Then when you tell them how the cow spends her time in that pen, I think people also really enjoy hearing that too. We've had tons and tons of great feedback, you know, about the barns and about the VMS.
I feel like when you're growing up, somebody had a grandpa or an uncle, somebody who had a farm, and nowadays it doesn't seem like people have that connection. So I think it's really important. I mean, if you see something online, people don't know any better. If you've never been to a farm, you can't really blame these people if they've never interacted with it. So we kind of invite people out here. We've got windows right into the operation. We do tours. We have a lot of school kids out. And I think it's important for us to open the doors, have them come in and show them exactly what we do. They ask questions, and we don't hide anything. And I think that's really important for people to gain that confidence with the producers.
And I think by us being transparent, you know, we do what we do. You know, if you're honest with people, they understand what you're doing. By letting them get to know us and us knowing them and being a part of the community, they've accepted what we do here.
So a little bit about the farm store. It was a dream of my mom's, and I had heard it when I was a kid, you know, to open an on-farm store, and then for whatever reason, it was never, you know, the right time to do it. And ultimately, you know, now that we were old enough, plus with this new green site barn, it all just seemed to come together and make sense at that point in time. So 2016, we opened up. Again, with the idea that there'd be family returning to the farm. The whole idea at the beginning, you know, when the store opened, was just to sell unique Wisconsin products. So, you know, meats, cheeses, honey. There's even goat milk soaps. You know, so things that really, you know, come from around the state that can be at one central location. But from that point on, you know, that's still our core, but it's grown into a lot of different things now. This is a great time of year for us. We do a lot with agritourism, not only the farm tours, but fall. We have a fall corn maze. We grow pumpkins now, and I think there's a picture of our fun farm, as we call it. That's all been added to the dairy store. So. It's been a really good thing for us, and a lot of opportunity, and I think still a lot of growth through the store. So we're employing somewhere around 15 people with the store. Kind of the core management of the store would be my mom, brother, and sister. Jake, you saw in the video. My dad has a large part as far as big picture things with the store and the decisions that are going to be made. As I mentioned, we have a 10-acre corn maze that starts up in early September, and at the end of October it turns into a haunted corn maze. So we've had the fortune of working with Quick Trip and Anheuser-Busch and other local companies that have been actually our design inside the corn maze, and so it's been a really good thing for us. So right off the bat, you know, cheese curds were a big hit. so we ship our milk to Dairy State Cheese in Wisconsin Rapids, and they're known for having fresh cheese curds every morning on the table, and so we knew that we wanted to include that in our store. As we got into it, for a couple of reasons, we decided to make our own cheese curds. One, we were unsure if we would always have fresh cheese curds available to us. Two, we wanted to kind of put our own stamp on it and have that uniqueness again for people to be able to come in and grab those curds and see the cows. And so we made the decision in 2021 to go ahead and make our own cheese curds. And so we just installed a small cheese plant actually in our existing milk house, and are making today about 100 pounds of curds per day, fresh curds. We take it right off the pipeline from the robots, so it doesn't get any more fresh than that. And so like this time of year when it's our busy season, we maximize the batches that we can in our cheese vat. If there are any leftover cheese curds, they'll be battered and frozen, and then we sell them as deep fried curds in the store. So it's been a really good thing for us. We sell them as flavored curds as well. And certainly there will be more opportunity down the road if we expand into whether it's string cheeses or maybe some specialty cheeses. So a little bit about farm tours. We saw it as an opportunity to teach the public more about agriculture. I mean, not only is it great to have people out on the farm and let them see, but you know, what gets said a lot in our industry is that if you don't tell your story, somebody else will fill the void. And so I think, you know, twofold, it's an opportunity for us to set the record straight and say, here, our doors are open, come on out and see what we do. And so especially to get kids and school groups out there and give them a good impression, I think it's very important. So we typically do about an hour tour, take a lap through the barn, see the calves. We have a small petting zoo. We have a tractor and wagon, and everybody gets a ride around the farm. In the fall, they get to pick a pumpkin, and so I think it's really been a good thing for our community. And as I talked a little bit about before, we have, you know, we're trying to expand in our agritourism. So one thing has been this funny farm, and you can kind of see as it was in construction here this summer. We've added like a jump pillow, an old combine that was repurposed with a slide, and it's really been a big hit, you know, to have people on Friday, Saturday, Sunday to come out, you know, to the country per se, and to be able to let the kids enjoy that stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunities there to even go further with that. So. And just a little bit about community involvement. You know, we're open to hosting meetings and events. We've had the June Dairy Breakfast several times now. Part of that is our county, just dairy farms in general, the numbers have been shrinking, and so there's been opportunities there. Farm Tech Days was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It was really neat to host that. We did that again with our neighbors, neighbor farmers, and it was a pretty neat experience. And I think again here ultimately it's filling that void, having people be comfortable with who we are as a dairy farm community, and just showing them what it's like.
In 1995, when my dad purchased the farm, he decided that his focus was going to be to milk cows. And so from that point forward, he really put an emphasis on high quality milk, high production. About 10 years ago, we were milking about 500 cows, 4X in our double 12 parlor. Parlor was maxed out. There was 2 hours a day for wash time, and that was it. About 6 years ago, we purchased our first Deal of Classic robots. Really loved what they did. In 2019, we added our first two V300s to a head-to-head two-row freestall pen. And then 2 or 3 years after that, we added 4 more V300s to a 3-row parlor pen. And most recently, we purchased 2 used classics to where we sit today with 10 total robots, 4 classics and 6 V300s. Our goal here on this dairy is to continually improve. And every year we say, how are we going to be more profitable? How are we going to ship more milk if that means being more profitable for us? And you always think, you know, how are you going to do that? It's always a challenge for us every year. Even though we've not grown from a footprint standpoint, we're achieving those goals of continued growth and improved profitability. Our goal with feeding in the robot is to reduce variability, to feed as few pellets as we can until it affects cow throughput. So we started in 2016 with a blanket 8 pounds of pellets. Today we're offering 5.5 pounds of pellets. Buy all of our protein mix, but otherwise all of the forages are homegrown. We went from a PMR to a straight TMR now, so our ration in the parlor is identical to the robots. So going back to reducing variability, making things as consistent as we can, not only for the cows, but for us too, and just keeping it simple. So let's get her nutrition at the bunk rather than through the robot. One thing, you know, even to start with is hoof health. And I think given these environments, with short walks, low stress, a consistent foot bath, I think we're in a far better place today in terms of hoof health than we were in the past when we were a parlor herd. When I think about cow flow, the next thing I really think about is nutrition, because we feel that that's what drives cows to and from the robot. Do all the small things right, comfortable beds, clean litter alleys, quality forage, and I think cow flow takes care of itself. There was a farm near us that was doing somewhere 5,000, maybe 5,500 pounds per robot, and I was like, okay, that's our goal, that's where we're gonna start. And at the time, and it still is, I mean, that's a solid number. Of course, in our industry, that goalpost just gets continued to move down the field. So today our goal, first and foremost, it's 8 pounds of solids per cow, but second to that is 8,000 pounds per robot. We all know how competitive it is, and we are not gonna be able to compete with the economy of scale, you know, that a larger dairy will. It's just not gonna happen, and so that's where we have to find who we are through those avenues. You know, how productive can we be? How efficient can we be? And really hone in on those things. And that goes into this whole conversation. VMS are going to help us get to that point. There's no doubt about it.
So a little bit about the herd and the cows and the robots themselves. Obviously, you know, part of why we're here today is because the direction that we've taken with the VMS. And I think that's, you know, that's who our identity is now and what it's going to be forward. So, you know, ultimately what we've learned since 2016 with the VMS and with the barns is that we're removing roadblocks or stressors that were in our cows' way previously. You know, so when I look at the big ones, it's moving groups of cows to the parlor, putting them in a confined area where it's hot in the summer, and so things like that. The way that we've changed kind of our mindset on how we handle animals, I think has really taken our farm to the next level. So. again, just a little bit on production and cell count. So specifically what we're doing on our farm, the decision was made for sand bedding many, many years ago, that was what we felt was best for our cows and for their beds to lay in. So we're bedding with sand, recycled sand actually. I'll talk on that just a little bit. All of our barns have been converted from natural vents to tunnel vents. Made a huge difference for us. You know, from flies to bunching, that's all been eliminated, and a huge part of you know, ultimately cow comfort. We have several robotic feed pushers now, you know, that are keeping fresh feed in front of the cows at all times. Alley scrapers, obviously in this system, you can't be disrupting cows, and so we've kind of retrofitted our barns with alley scrapers. And another huge pillar is nutrition and high quality forages, more specifically. So again, where we are, we have some really great land that we're able to farm. Everything's under an irrigation, so what that does for us is it gives us really consistent forages year after year, and so that's where in the past few years we've really tried to focus on our feed just as we have done with our cows. So if it's on a per cow basis, well, it's acre by acre, how can we improve year over year? And so some of these you know, bullets here, you know, are some of the ways that we're improving the forage quality that we put in front of the cows. So a little bit about breeding. At some point early on in my dad's career, he made the decision that we weren't going to invest resources in, you know, to house our young stock, to feed our young stock, and so all the young stock was sold, and all of our replacements would be purchased. So for at least 15 years now, we've been purchasing all of our replacement cows. Generally, we try to do, you know, 30 days in milk, 100 pounds in milk, 100 cell count. That's kind of what we've tried to stick to as far as what we purchase. We've worked with similar sized dairy farms and also herd dispersals over the years to find animals, and it's worked for us. I understand that the trend in our industry is fewer heifers, more beef on dairy, and so it may be something that we have to change down the road, and I'm aware of that, but until that comes, we feel like we've been successful with that strategy. So, and even now as we've moved to robots, you know, you need a certain type of udder to fit on the VMS, and I think collectively as an industry, the udder conformation has improved, and so it hasn't been an issue for us. I'd say 70% of the cows we buy are robot ready. So we installed an activity system in 2017, so every cow is collared. We rely heavily on breeding and health through our activity system. All of our first services are bred off of natural heats. Anybody that's anovular will be palpated and put on the appropriate sync program. I think from an efficiency standpoint, I can't imagine farming without a system. It's made my job, you know, my time commitment has drastically changed from having to watch cows, to see cows, to relying more on the system. Obviously, you need to have the core skills for that, but as farms are getting larger, you're not going to have the same talent, you know, that's able to watch cows, and so these are the future, I think, and I've really enjoyed having the system on our farm. All of our calves are sold then as wet calves. Everything is bred to beef semen. So as I said in the video, our goal is to constantly improve, and obviously that, you know, one big way for us is through production. It's been really, really fun for me with the robots to kind of just just tweak things and sit back and watch how the cows respond. And in a way, it's kind of a game for me, because there's so many ways that you can just allow that cow to just go express herself in these pens. And so whether that's through milking frequency or, again, the environment, we really, really like what it does for us. A little bit about our retrofits. So we only have one true guided flow on our barn. If you're not familiar with that, essentially cows, if they got up from their bed, they would have to find a sort gate, which would either allow them into the holding area to get milked. If they don't have permission at the time, they would walk to feed. After they fed, they would make that circle again to their bed. So that's a true guided flow. So our retrofits, which you're looking at one right here, is a head-to-head. So we have two robots in the middle of that pen. And so this would be kind of a modified guided. So cows effectively could, like this cow eating, could turn around and lay down in a bed. She wouldn't be forced to make that loop around the back. So it was kind of a question mark when we went into this project if we were going to get that same flow. And we're really, really happy with it. And so after this was our 2-robot retrofit, we did this in a 3-row. So where you would have another row of stalls on the back side of that circle, and that's worked really, really well for us too. So I'm excited that it gives us options in the future. Right now, I think we're in a really good place. Having those 200 cows in the parlor gives us a lot of flexibility with our cow selection, and we can really optimize the robots at the same time. So just goals for the future. So like I talked about, to be able to find cows, I mean, it all starts with a good cow, but again, I think our genetic pool as an industry continues to follow the same path, and I think there's really good cows, out there for us. And we'll continue to invest in technology. That's been a big part of who we are. I think it's the future. Obviously labor is what labor is, and technology is going to fill those voids. Need to talk about the support team that we have around us, and so we've been fortunate to have great nutritionists, great veterinarians. Even I look at our dealership, Bob's Dairy, that helped us configure these robots and get this all going. It's been a team effort, and we don't have to be that smart, we just need to have smart people around us, and so we have had that, people with the same goals, and even the people on our team that we work with, through this whole process of adding the VMS and moving away from manual milking, we've been able to invest more on our people because we have fewer people. We can spend more time with them, teaching them. And that's what we've done, and we have a great team today that cares about the animals and cares about what we're trying to achieve on our farm. So that's been a residual benefit of this whole deal. So I said that we do bed with recycled sand. So this system's been in place for about 15 years, and ultimately I think it was done out of necessity. We have a very high water table in central Wisconsin, and so earthen lagoon was not an option. Have to have above ground storage. We have a slurry store, and sand and a slurry store don't mix, and so that's why we're separating sand. We have a Dairy Tech sand cannon. We use a pretty coarse grain of sand because we rely on gravity for separation. We also have 2 presses that remove fiber, which helps us improve the sand separation. All of our liquid is then pumped into our slurry store, which is emptied twice a year. Everything is dragline hosed because our land is contiguous. And the fiber portion that we separate, in the last maybe 5 to 7 years, we started composting. Really no place to go with that fiber in the growing months. And so compost was a good way for us to reduce that volume. You take about 2/3 of the initial volume out and condense the nutrients. And so, I think that was our initial goal with the compost. But again, kind of the benefits that have come from that is that it's made an outstanding product to put on our hay fields immediately after removing a crop of hay. But then to this point, we've sold it in bulk in front of our dairy store. But I think there may be some big opportunities as far as bagging it in the future. It's a fluffy, smells like black dirt. It's a really nice product, and so that's where we are with the compost. We purchase about 6 new loads of sand a year, so we're recycling somewhere around 96, 98% of the sand. And at this point, we're letting it drain off for at least a week, and then putting it right back in our beds. So just our labor situation. So mom and dad are still very involved. Mom on the store, plus the bookwork for the farm. Dad at this point is a coach, overseeing all aspects, but still involved in the day-to-day. My brother and sister are managing the dairy store. I do cows, robots, and employees. We have a longtime employee named Kelly Sankey. Story is he started with us when he was, I think, 13. Dad used to pick him up from his house to milk the 3rd shift and bring him back. And then finally, when he was 14, he started driving himself. And it's a joke. Maybe true. But anyhow, so he does everything but cows. He does a great job with our crops and the equipment side of things. And so, again, employees, so that's a big part of where we've come from. When I came back to the farm in 2013, we had a 9-person team that was doing all the milking. Today we're at 5 full-time employees. We're milking the parlor cows 3X, and then the other half of their shift would be dedicated to the duties that go along with the robots: scraping, cleaning, moving cows.
The VMS have really given us the opportunity to step forward with the industry. Using the same barn footprint, we doubled the milking capacity. It's pretty impressive attachment on the V300. So over the last 5 years, we've continued to retrofit barns and add DeLaval robots to where we sit today with 10 total robots, 4 classics and 6 V300s. Our journey was touring some of these farms, and I think pretty quickly we fell in love with not only the robot, but the environment that goes with the robot, the environment for the cows. We built our first green site VMS barn in 2016. 2 robots, 120 cows. Really liked what it did for us. Still having the parlor plus the robots, it gave us a lot of flexibility with cows. And we knew that was going to be the future for us. So when I think about VMS Your Way, it's extremely applicable to us. And as I just talked about some of the retrofits, being able to configure these barns to fit what exists on our farm it's been a huge breakthrough for us. We've had older barns that had served a useful life that we were able to kind of facelift, add VMS to them, and they're back to being extremely productive barns with extremely productive cows. So the VMS have really given us the opportunity to step forward with the industry, all while maintaining our core goals of cow productivity, milk quality, and overall, high performance. We thought, how could we beat milking 4X in the parlor? Like, we were very productive there. Well, now we have peak cows milking 4.5 to 5 times.
You know, then labor you continue to pay forever, whereas once the robots are paid for, they're free labor.
We've been able to do that too, to give the cow the consistency that I think she craves. The biggest thing that I see when you compare the two scenarios, parlor versus VMS, are you have cows hitting peaks that they likely wouldn't hit in a parlor. And it's milking frequency, you know, but it's also removing roadblocks, removing stressors. It's fun to sit back and watch high-producing cows crave the VMS when they're hitting 5 or 6 milkings a day. I mean, that to me it's huge. You know, to have cows come into the robot, to drop 40 pounds of milk, and to come back and do it again in 6 hours. I mean, when you talk about efficiency and utilization, I mean, that's it right there. The VMS helps us achieve better longevity with our cows because of the system that it's a part of. I'm very happy with VMS because it's accomplished the goals that we set out, you know, to improve upon, which is labor and continued improvement.
The robots are excellent. They're very, very good. I'm glad we did them.
So just a little bit about the robots themselves before we finish up here. So why do we choose robots? We fell in love with the barn, I think the first time we walked into one of these barns for a lot of the reasons that I explained to you. But we feel like it's the way of the future as far as, you know, how cows are gonna get milked. You know, it provides the consistency that cows crave. It solves a lot of labor issues, and if you're going to be, you know, a large farm that's after volume, it might not be for you, but in our case, our niche, you know, we feel it's a really good fit for us. So the other thing that's great about them is that they're modular. You know, they're 60 cow increments, and I think a lot of farms have kind of followed that path, and we certainly have. You know, every day I'm looking, maybe we could put a robot here, you know, and add and change things around that way. So you can really customize what fits on your own barn. And again, robots, all the other things that go along with it, the environment, the cow flow, guided and modified. She moves at her own pace, short walks. So comfortable environment. Just a few of the statistics on our farm. So we're averaging 2.9 milkings per day. I just looked this morning, so like for example, in one of those pens that's doubled up, so with only 53 beds but 2 robots, we're getting 3.3 milkings in there. When you provide that type of environment where there's literally no wait time for her, she walks into the holding area. Those pens are really, you know, reaching their potentials up to 120, 125 pounds in those pens. So that might be, you know, where we shoot for higher milkings. We came from 4X in the parlor. We've believed in higher milking frequencies, so we're seeing some of the benefits there. We started in 2016 at 8 pounds of pellets fed as a blanket to every cow. We've lowered that down to 5.5 where we are today, just trying to remove any variability that the pellet would have and getting all of our nutrition through the bunk. That I think we could probably bring down a little bit more, and as long as it doesn't affect our visits. So 6:45 box time and 38 pounds of milk per milking. As we've gotten more into this, really trying to push that pounds per milking higher, so while still trying to maintain the milking frequency, so having cows carry more milk with them. And it all goes into the conversation of your efficiency on the robot. So we look really closely at idle time on the robot. So how many more milkings could we have gotten versus, you know, are we setting cows back by having them wait? So it's fun again to kind of play with those settings. We love the flexibility between the parlor and robots. And something we've done recently is dedicated a heifer pen just for robotic milking cows. For a lot of the obvious things that we know, but just that whole social aspect of it, I think especially it's amplified in robot pens because you can have, you know, certain cows that'll block the entrance or whatever it may be. So we've seen an improvement on production, but also reproduction in our heifer pens. So I think they mesh better together, obviously. And just kind of how we manage our cows. So everybody commingles at dry off. Everybody comes to the parlor where they get dried off. They freshen together. They spend up to a week, 5 to 7 days, commingled in our post-fresh pen. And then when I feel she's ready to go, she'll find her way back into to another group. And we're able to get those cows in there a little bit earlier because I can really monitor them again with the info that I'm getting off the robot, milk weights, and then again the collars. You know, I get real-time data, and it's very beneficial to us. So what's next for us? Continue to invest in technology, lots of growth through the store, especially through agritourism. We're really grateful for our the support that we've had through the store in our community. I think it's really kind of in a way given us a social license to be doing what we're doing, where we're doing it, so close to town. I can see a lot of growth through the store and on the farm side just to continue to refine what we're already doing through technologies like this. So that's all I have. Questions, if there are any. Thank you guys for your time, De La Valle, for this opportunity, and World Dairy Expo as well. So anything before we conclude? Yes. The question was, have I ever watched a single cow flow through the barn? Does she use the robot at the same time or the same robot? And definitely, you see a lot of that. I mean, we've seen that in the parlor, using the same stall and returning to her same bed. But yeah, definitely you see that in the robot. And like how we've given cows a little more freedom to get into the robot. Yeah, they develop their schedule, and we know that they love consistency. And I think you can really see that more so in this type of setup. Yes, sir. In other technologies going forward? What do we plan to do as far as investment of technology as we go forward? One thing I'm kind of intrigued by, but I don't see the total benefits yet, would be like the camera, the AI type stuff. I think there's going to be a place for that. I don't know enough about it. The other thing that I'm excited about, but it's not yet to our scale, is what we can do with our manure. I think the amount of water that we handle is crazy, and so obviously it's happening on a large scale, but I hope that is something that we can do in the future. So yes. Right now, what's not composted, well, the fiber is composted, and all of the liquids are hosed onto our land, incorporated in the soil. So it's all used on our own land. Yeah. It really starts for me with a good square udder. So if we purchase 10 cows, I take the best, whatever, the best cows that make it to the robot. Early on, there was a little more selection on milking speeds too, but now with this new setup with the double robots, we don't have to be quite as focused on milking speed. But I just want the robot arm to be as efficient as possible. There's very few cows that we have to reject after we've trained them that don't cooperate or can't figure it out. But that's what it starts with for me. Yes. why did we ultimately decide on robots and not maybe a rotary or, I think a big part of that was labor. So when I came back from school quickly, I fell into the role of managing labor, and we had 9 people. We had 4 of them that were really good that we can count on, and then the 5 were revolving door. And I didn't want to do that the rest of my life, and so at that same time we toured this other dairy. The Classic was pretty good at milking cows. I mean, it's a good robot, and we said, okay, we can pursue that, and so we didn't want to add more labor. I think was a big part of it. Yes, way back. Good question. What was the transition like from the parlor to the robots, milk drop? It was a very smooth transition, I felt like. We were milking 4X in the parlor. So we had already had that mindset. We wanted to open things up for the cows and the robots, so I think that was a good transition. Production was high in the robots, so when we were making probably 100 pounds a day in the parlor prior to this, we budgeted ran our numbers at 95 pounds in the robots because we thought there was a chance maybe that we might take a step back with somewhat lower milking frequency. They quickly matched each other in terms of production, and today the robots are they're producing more than the parlor, but for about 3 or 4 years their production and ultimately their energy corrected milk was the same. Always higher components in the parlor, but a few more pounds of milk in the robots, and we always just felt like that was how we fed the cows for that difference in milk components, adding the pellet in there. But no, I think all in all it was relatively, I felt seamless for us. So. Yep, way back. The wrinkles that we had when we first started up, I mean, you got to be ready and have a plan. The reality of robots is that they're on their own through the night. You got to be ready for that, to take calls, and you're going to have to deal with that. But I mean, honestly, from a cow standpoint, I think we're in a better place with the robots. So we didn't take any step backwards there. If you were going into it, I really, and I have friends that have toyed with the idea, and I understand the investment that it is. It's something you do for the long haul. It's on a per cow basis. It probably doesn't look as good as a parlor, or whatever, but there's a certain aspect of quality of life that goes along with it. And, I think that, we're proof that cows can thrive in it. And I wouldn't hesitate, to do it. It's real, so. Say that one more time. Yes. What's in our TMR? So really heavy on forage, so we're doing some low lignin alfalfas and BMR corn silage. We're feeding a pretty high portion of whey in our diet. And then protein mix, which I don't know exactly what's all in there, but high forage and high quality forage, so. Yeah. Backup generators, we have one. We had a smaller generator that we swapped out a few years ago. After we retrofitted all the barns to tunnel vents, it quickly added up in terms of KWs that we needed. So we have a 500 KW that we've actually only had to use once in the last couple of years. But yeah, that's all. The robots themselves, I don't think draw a ton, with the variable speed pumps and that. So yeah, just one. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, in terms of milk quality, that is, if that's one point where I think we could improve upon with the robots. If you look at cow prep in the parlor, I think we do a really excellent job. In the robots, we're not quite getting as dry of teats, as quite accurate of a post-dip, and so we see a little bit higher incidence of mastitis in the robots. And it's a whole different ballgame too, as far as, stall hygiene, whereas you're getting every cow up in the parlor and cleaning them, and so we need to be extra, aware of that in the robots, and so yeah, we're a little bit behind on the robots versus the parlor. Yeah. Good. Yeah, good question. How far do we have to push milk across the farm? So our robots are very scattered. We actually have 2 milk houses and 3 bulk tanks. So one milk house has 2 bulk tanks, and then the dairy store has a bulk tank there that catch 4 of our robots. So I think we're going 200 feet right now. Our goal long term is to be to hopefully be a direct load. So that would push some of our runs up to 500 feet, but I believe De La Valle has the technology to get that done. So I think it's all doable, yeah. Yeah. I'd love to have him come up here and finish that. Bedding routine. So, Grandpa, what do you think about all this? Yeah, I'm sure I can't adequately answer that to see, how far it's come. But yeah, I'm glad that he still pops in and keeps an eye on things for us. Bedding routine. So we bed weekly with a sand shooter on a skid steer. Push all the cows to one side, and we shoot through. We can catch 2 beds from one alley, so that we don't have to push cows back and forth. So, yes. All I can tell you, just because I'm not knowledgeable enough, is that it's a flavored pellet, just a textured, pellet. So, yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew more about what's in it, and we've never experimented with anything. We felt that it's worked for us, and so we've only fed a flavored pellet. Yeah, new employees on the farm. How has it been onboarding them with the new system? So now everybody's got some of the apps, the De La Valle apps with the milking cues and the alarms, and so it's a little more difficult. There's more to have to catch on to with the robots, understanding what the alarms say and being able to respond to them. So I've had to just be way more patient, and sometimes the robot will alarm twice before somebody responds to it. But I guess I just have to be aware of that a lot of our employees have had zero exposure to this before, and fortunately we have one guy now who has a really good comprehension of it, and then he can help. So if there was any advice, I'd say get somebody who takes interest, really make them invest in in learning it, and then they can help with everybody else. So yes. Yes, we do have a monitoring system on our farm. We have SCR collars, which I mentioned we rely heavily for breeding and cow health, and it's made my job, my time commitment much improved because of it. So. Okay, very good. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you again so much for your attendance today and online. We really appreciate you spending time today to learn more about Feltz Family Farm and their dairy store. I love that question that came up in the middle there about robots or rotary. And tomorrow at our Knowledge Nook at 10:30, we'll be able to discuss that more, where we have Derek Josie from TDF Honest Farming and Edeline Dairy coming to talk about why they chose either a rotary, a 50-cell rotary, or 20 robots. So if you're here tomorrow, it'll be right back there at 10:30. Thank you.